Ever struggled to align objects perfectly in Blender? That's where snapping comes in. It's a core feature in every 3D and CAD software, and in Blender it lets you position, rotate, and scale with precision, even in edit mode. Let's jump in and see how it works in Blender. We have three ways to activate snapping in Blender. One is through activating it permanently by clicking on this button. So if I select this cube and I activate the move tool, now it's snapping in increments of 1 meter. It's permanently on. Let's turn it off. The second way is to click Shift Tab, and now it's also snapping. Shift Tab turns it off and turns it on. My preferred way is while in the middle of an operation, let's say in the move operation, I click Control and temporarily I activate snapping. The same thing for the rotation tool. I click Control and it's snapping as well. There is one fundamental difference while using the Control key, is that the Control key is overriding these options here. If you have it permanently on, like that, it will not affect the rotate and the scale tools, as I can show you. So let's activate the rotate tool, and as you can see, it's not being affected. But if I click Control, now it's using 5 degrees increments, and the same thing for the scale tool as well. If I click Control, now it's using 10 centimeter steps, like that. And if I stop clicking, I'm freely scaling it. I never use snapping always on unless you are, let's say, building worlds where you have a modular system and you need to use increments, then it would make sense to have it permanently on. But my advice is to use the shortcut key Control while in the middle of an operation to temporarily activate snapping. Let's have a look at which options do we have. So increment and grid, they are very similar, but let's start with the grid first because it's a little bit easier to explain. With snapping permanently on, we select the cube, we activate the move tool, and let's just click here on the center so we are not constraining in any specific axis. So when we try to move it around, we can see that it's always snapping to the grid intersection points. Of course, if I want to really move it on the z-axis, I need to specifically move it on the z-axis. The same thing using the shortcut keys. So if I click G, Z, now I can move it up and down using the same step that the grid has here. So how do we change these? We have two ways. One is through coming here to Scene Properties, and we've got the unit scale, and we can resize it like that. I'm advising against it because this affects the scene scale when we export it from Blender. So I would keep it at 1 like that, unless of course you are using a software where it needs a different scale unit. And because I'm using the metric system, each square has 1 square meter. I've got the length in meters, but if I change it to centimeters, it doesn't do anything to the grid. The same thing if we choose imperial. Now each square, it has 1 square foot. I will go back to metric. The better way is to come here to overlays and you can scale it here. So if I choose 0.1, which means each square is 10 centimeters. If I start moving it like that, as you can see, it's snapping and it's moving in 10 centimeters steps. The same thing on the Z axis like that. If we use an orthogonal view, it's behaving the same way. As you can see, it's always snapping to the grid intersection points. If we zoom in until we've got a smaller grid, I don't know if you can see because of the video compression, but now it's moving in 1 centimeter steps. Let's reset this to 1. And this is how we use grid snapping. Now let's have a look into increment snapping. So let's select it. And by default, it has this option on the absolute increment snap. So let's select our cube and let's move it without constraining it to any specific axis. And as you can see, it's not snapping to the grid, but from what you can see from our transform panel, you can see that it's also moving in 1 meter steps. So it's using the grid size to control the step size, so to speak. And now we are not constrained to the XY plane like the grid. But if we move to an orthogonal view, you can see that the behavior is exactly the same as the grid snapping. If we zoom in, once again, it keeps snapping to the grid like that. So the step is exactly the same. Let's reset the position. And now I will just move it 50 centimeters on the x-axis. And if we go back here and uncheck absolute increment snap, and if I move it in order to be easier to see, if I constrain the movement into the x-axis, you can see that it's not snapping to the grid, or the steps are not matching the grid intersection points. This is the difference between having it on and off, because if I have it on, it will force it to the grid intersection points like that. So this is the difference between increment and grid snapping. Let's now have a look into vertex snapping. So let's select vertex here. Now the snap base will also have an impact in how the snapping behaves. So let's keep it with closest. And this means that in object mode, when we select this object, it will always take into consideration the vertices that are closest to the target object, which in this case are all of those placed on this face of this cube here. So let's click G and Control. And as you can see, it's always snapping with the closest ones, wherever I hover my cursor. It's always any of those that are part of that face. In this case, if I want to just put them exactly like this, flush with each other, it works well. But if I want to do the same, but on the other side, it doesn't work because these are always the ones closest to the object. That's why when I was snapping here, I can never move it to the other side easily like that. For this to work, I would have to move the cube to this side. Now these ones are the closest ones. And now I can snap them this way to make them flush with each other. This always works the same way in edit mode. So if I enter edit mode and I've got the cube selected and I just snap it like that, it has the exact same behavior as expected. The only difference is because we are in edit mode, we are moving components of this object, the origin stays behind, stays where originally was. In the same sense that if I've got another cube or a selection of objects and I want to snap them, or let's say that the top cube, I actually move it a little bit further away from this one and I select them like this, please remember the closest ones. Now, as you can see, it's always using the closest from the selection, even though this is the active object. Even if I click Shift and revert the selection, those vertices belonging to this face are always the closest ones here. So now let's change the snap base to center. When I select the yellow cube and I want to snap it, as you can see, it will always use the origin to snap as a snap base to snap it into the vertices of the target object. Let's go to edit mode. In this case, it's going to be the same. It's the center of the selection that is going to be served as a snap base. I'm going to switch to X-ray mode and just select the top ones like that. And it's the center of the selection that is used as a snap base always. If I now duplicate this cube and select both, now this is, let's say, the center of the selection. And if we snap it, it will be used as a snap base. But what if we want to use a specific center of any of these objects? Now we need to come here to our transform pivot point and we go to active element. And in this case, the one with the yellow color is the active element. And the center of this object is the one that's going to be used as our snap base, as you can see. If I revert this selection, now that's the upper cube center that is going to be used as our snap base. If we choose medium, now it's going to use the medium point. In this case, the medium point, it's going to be always this one, like that. So it's going to be the one to be used as our snap base, which in this case would be the same as putting it to center. There is no change. With just one object selected, if we change the snap base from center to medium, it's going to be exactly the same. As you can see, it's using the object center. Even if I move the object origin all the way to the bottom, the center is where we have the object origin. As you can see, it's always going to be the one to be used as the snap base. Now let's go to the snapping options and let's select active. Let's select this cube and move it and click Ctrl to temporarily activate snapping. And as you can see, it's the center of the cube that will be used as a snapping base. Let's duplicate this cube. Select both, being the bottom cube, the active element. Let's move, click Ctrl, and it's always the active element that's going to be used as the snap base. Let's invert the selection, click G, move it, and as you can see, now it's the top cube that's being used as a snap base. I'm going to delete the top cube right now. Let's select the bottom one, enter edit mode. Let's click Shift and click twice to make this corner vertex as the active element. Let's click G and click Ctrl to activate temporary snapping. And as you can see, it's that element that's being used as the snap base. In the same sense, if I turn this vertex as the active element, this is going to be the one being used as the snap base. Or that one, for example. Next, let's change our snap target to edge. Let's keep this at center, at snap base. And I'm not going to show all the other options for the snap base because you already saw what they do in Vertex snap target. So please feel free to experiment. So let's select the cube and let's move it close to an edge. And as you can see, it's snapping to whatever edge it's getting close to. If we've got an unselectable object, as I set it here on the outliner, we can exclude the object from being able to snap to if we choose this option here. If I move it, as you can see, I cannot snap to a non-selectable object. This can be handy for you to control to which objects you want to snap to. Another option that is somehow related to edges is the edge center. If you click on it and you move it close to an edge, it will snap always to the edge center. Another option that I would like to show is edge perpendicular. If we move a little bit to the top view like that, and we move to snap, as you can see, this widget appears showing that we are perpendicular to the target edges like that. This is also very useful. I've added this empty with this arrow so we can see when we are aligning this object to the normal of the faces, we can see how it works. And also I've got these objects here to help illustrate when we snap to faces. So let's go here to the snap options and let's change the snap target from edge to face. Let's grab our cube, and as you can see, is snapping to the face of this larger cube, like such, or even here. Always snapping, but it's not aligning it to the normal of the surface, but is always snapping to the surface like that. If we come here and we select Align Rotation to Target, now as you can see, it's always where is pointing the z-axis, the local z-axis. If I change here from global to local, you can see that is always pointing in the normal direction of the surface, like that. The same sense, if we do it here on this cube, it's the same, or here on this ramp, it's always aligning to the surface, like that. So this is a very handy feature of the snapping options in Blender. Now I would like to show you how I use the snap settings most of the time. I leave it at center and in Vertex, and then you can save this file as startup file, so you don't need to always to change these settings. And now with the cube selected, I activated G to move, and then activate B to choose my base. So let's say that I want this vertex to snap to that vertex. I choose this one, and then I move my cursor to that one, and it's perfectly snapped to that position. Let's say that I want that one to snap to this one. I do the same. G, B, hover on the base vertex, then I hover on the target, and that's it. They are perfectly snapped like that. I will do now the same here. So let's say that I want this vertex to perfectly align with this one here. And now I want to scale this cube in order to match exactly the size of this cube as well. So for that, I enter edit mode. I select this vertex here, Shift S and cursor to selected. Here on the pivot options, select 3D cursor as our pivot point. And now when we activate scale tool, as you can see, that is the point of origin from which we are scaling from. If we click B, now we choose this vertex to match that one. And this way, this cube is perfectly matching this one here. So now let's say that we also want to match this cube to this ramp here. Let's do the same. Let's click G, B, base vertex, target vertex, like such. And now we want to align the rotation. Let's do the same thing. Let's enter edit mode, select this vertex, Shift X, cursor to selected, object mode again. Let's rotate on the X axis like such. B, base vertex, and now we just need to choose the target. Now it's perfectly aligned. And we can also scale it in the same way to perfectly match the size of the ramp. So let's click S to activate the scale tool. B, this is our base vertex, and we want to choose our target vertex like that. And now our cube is perfectly aligned with that ramp. So these are my settings and the way I use most of the time the snapping tools in Blender. And I hope that you will find these useful as well on your daily workflow. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you found value in it, please subscribe to the channel, give it a like, and thank you for watching.